Hello, welcome to the Tuesday Business News Report. It's now time to bring you our feature. On the show today, we're focusing on reactions so far generated as Nigeria's inflation rate once again recorded a spike, increasing by 15.75%. Now, this comes as no surprise as economies had earlier forecast above the 15% threshold. This is contained in the latest National Bureau of Statistics report on the Consumer Price Index year on year in the month of December 2020. This is 0.86% points higher than the rate recorded in the month of November, which is pegged at 14.89%. The percentage change in the average composite CPI for the 12-month period ending December 2020 over the average of the CPI for the previous 12 months was 13.25%, representing a 0.33 percentage point increase over 12.92% recorded in November 2020. Now, urban inflation rate increased by 16.33% year-on-year in the month of December from 15.47% recorded in November. On the other hand, rural inflation increased by 15.2% in December from 14.33% in the month of November. The CPI once again is fueled highly by the composite food index, which has now hit well over 19.56% in the month of December. That's from the record of 18.3% recorded in November last year. The rise in food index was caused mainly by increases in the prices of bread and cereals, potatoes, yam and other tubers, meat, fruits, vegetables, fish and oils, as well as fats. Well, joining me now live in our Lagos studio, I have public finance and policy analyst Olusegun Elemo. Good to have you on the breakfast show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Now, for so many economic watchers like yourself, these figures did not come to you as a surprise. Some even had said, well, we'll see between 15 and 16% increase in terms of the inflation rate, but we cannot watch these figures go uncontrolled. What's your expectation now from the monetary and fiscal authorities to help stem the tide of the inflationary pressures we are facing at this point in time?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, for the monetary interventions, for me, I think that CBN needs to move very rapidly right now. Look at how, one of the factors that is responsible for this is the point that importers, for instance, are unable to access freely forex, to import some necessities that people, ordinarily purchase on a day-to-day basis. And I know that, there's been, this forex rationing sort of, and it's also now impacted the market. So we need a situation, but CBN is kind of, in a fix because oil hasn't gotten to that, point where we can earn so much forex to shock whatever we're experiencing, in the market. But certainly, there must be, some way out. CBN just has to, probably pull from the reserve and see how it can intervene. And perhaps maybe there needs to be a review of those items that have been restricted, not to come in, from outside the country because production is on the low right now in Nigeria. And that, again, is as a result of what COVID has done.
Don't you think that will be tantamount to a policy somersault? Some are saying that instead of having to look towards that avenue, that we should rather have stimulus to enhance production levels and capacity. At this point in time, we have to look towards zero interest rates like we see globally. Central banks are also tilting to. We also have to consolidate on the supply and demand aspect of things, look at security and a whole lot more. But now we expect the MPC to meet on Thursday, and our fingers are crossed whether or not we'll have fresh decisions. For a while now, the monetary policy rate has been retained at the same peg, as well as other key parameters. Do you think we might see a surprise move from the MPC in terms of responding to these figures that we have now?
What I expect the MPC to do is probably to, like you mentioned, review, the lending rates, and it's not just the lending that will solve the problem that we're in right now. There are other infrastructure gaps. Even if you give a manufacturer, money as single digit, for instance, what are the infrastructures that enhances production? if there is no power, sufficient power to enhance, and the cost of production still continues to rise. As you're aware, recently, the tariff for electricity was reviewed, and it's more than 100% increase, sort of, for some people. So if those infrastructures are not in place, then what's the incentive for providing lending? And then again is the distribution logistics. The transportation is not as effective as it ought to be to enhance, a market, that is very friendly. So even when people produce or when they harvest, how do they move those products to the market? And how do they move those goods to the market? Those are some of the issues that we have currently. And the president, yes, he moved, very swiftly recently in opening the borders. I think it was long overdue to have opened the borders. I was, at first in support of shutting the borders. We needed our neighbors to know that we cannot continue to, condole all of these things. But it was long overdue. The pressure was on the, internal economy, and then there was no production. So we needed to bring in products so that we don't keep people, many people, chasing after very few products in the market.
But also, going to find a button now with regards to the forecast we have for the year 2021. Every single move, policy direction, has to also take into consideration that we expect the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. How do we now have sustainable pricing, competitive pricing that will keep Nigeria on the edge so that every Nigerian has food items and services come to them at cheaper rates, but we still have that competitive edge where any investor would rather want to work here? But at these rates where you have to pay for more in terms of electricity tariff, fuel as well, there's no infrastructure, it seemingly looks like a dead end.
Yeah, obviously. But like you said, the fiscal authorities need to look around implementation of the 2021 budget on one side, how to reflect the economy from that angle. Yes, there will be a lot of borrowing to do that, and then we're looking forward to that, but we have to spend efficiently. We just have to speak sense to ourselves. We don't have, we're running a 13 trillion budget. That is not even enough. When you look at the population, it's inconsequential.
Largely funded or expected to be funded by borrowing.
Exactly. So there's pressure on borrowing, and then there's the fact that even the budget itself, the budget size, is not enough. Is insignificant to the demand of the population. Yeah. Now, on the other side about controlling the price of food and other products in the market, is that we need to understand that if we are not producing or we are producing at a limited quantity, we need to open up and let people bring in products. Yes, you can't levy those products as they come in and then provide incentive, like you said, lending incentives and all that for local manufacturers. But the truth is, if you're producing in Nigeria, if you're manufacturing anything in Nigeria, the conditions for operations are not that suitable. And like I said, there's no infrastructure, there's no power. Even your office right now, how much are you spending on diesel to keep everything running fine? So and then when you now apply that to an average manufacturer, how do you expect the person to then compete? But what must happen is that open the borders, let product come in, let's have some stability in the market, let's have products in the market so that many people don't chase after few products. That will stabilize the inflation. And then we need to look at security.
We're dealing with the second wave of the COVID-19, the affairs of a harsher third wave of the COVID-19 as well. Now, what's your forecast for Nigeria's inflation rate for the next report we would likely expect from the National Bureau of Statistics?
It's going to increase. Yeah, certainly. It's going to increase except the fiscal and monetary authorities quickly moving. Provide forex to manufacturers, open up the borders, let products come in, and then review, like I said, those restricted items on the list. There are some items on that list that are not currently produced locally right now or produced in limited quantity. We need to review all of that. And see, let me tell you something. We just need to have this sense of urgency that things are moving fast, and those who are making decisions need to also move faster. It is with that sense that we begin to, it's not when things happen, when things start going out of hand. Right now, where the economy is
spiraling out of control.
It is. And then look at security affecting farmers here and there, and then there's poor harvest, and we just need to really, move very fast.
Wrapping up our conversation, I'd just also like to have your thoughts. We had kickbacks from auto assemblers and manufacturers in Nigeria looking at the Finance Act. Quite a commendable effort by the federal government, and also looking at the speedy passage of the 2021 budget, trying to also see that we have the January to December cycle. Yeah. But implementation of all of these document is key. Now, we have kickbacks where we have those who import now have tariff cuts in terms of tax cuts and levies, so it's not as pricey as it is. For those, it's a welcome development. That means that the average Nigerian can now buy a vehicle at a less cheaper rate. But this also stifles the local economy and assembler base, which should also be fueled as well. If you don't have that sector well supported as well, we'll see increases in job cuts, we'll see production capacity go low, and you might not even likely buy a brand new car as an average Nigerian. Certainly. So we have situations from the agricultural sector, aviation, and a whole lot more, where it seems like the government is speaking from both sides of
the mouth. You see, the point is, what is pushing people to buy cars? The thing pushing people to buy cars is because there is no effective transportation mechanism. The mass transit system is not working. It's not working. So that's why people are buying cars. And what's the local production like to meet the demand? Look at putting 30%, levy on vehicles imported. It's wrong. It's a wrong idea in the first place. That was why, those prices, shot up. And I believe that the government now realized that no, this can't just work. And so those who are manufacturing locally, yes, they must find a way. For instance, maybe the fiscal authority and monetary authorities need to find a way to incentivize that. If you are manufacturing, yes, we need to provide some incentive for you, but not to shut the borders against
we definitely need incentives for all key sectors of the economy if we want to spur the recovery process a little faster than we already have, because at this point in time, our GDP rate is growing well below the rate of unemployment, population growth rate, and a whole lot more, and that's not sustainable.
Certainly.
We have to look for ways of having sustainable pricing and much more. Thank you very much for your time on the breakfast show today. Olusegun Elemo.